What does it take to build a business that doesn't fall apart the moment you step back? My next guest has not done it just once, but twice. Rachel Murphy is a founder, a seasoned exit strategist, and the CEO of the Grafta, a firm dedicated to helping business owners reduce the dependency on themselves and maximise the value of what they built. Rachel knows better than most what a great business and a sellable business are two very different things. So if you've ever wondered whether your company would survive without you, or whether it's even ready to sell, this conversation is going to hit differently. So please welcome to the show, Rachel Murphy.
Rachel, welcome to the Director First podcast. Really grateful that you've made the trip over here. I've come down to Bandit Country to interview you.
I love it. Well, absolutely delighted to be here, Chris. Thank you for asking me.
Brilliant. Listen, the first question, just to get a bit of history of sort of who you are, where you've come from. If we could get the shortish version of who's Rachel Murphy and how has she ended up building businesses and selling them for 8 figures? The short potted history.
I'll try and give you the short version. So, who am I? I think born entrepreneur. So entrepreneur for as long as I can remember, and business has always fascinated me. So, as young as I don't know, under 10 probably, playing kind of Murphy Corporation with my my younger brother, and then there was car washing businesses. There was a couple of businesses that I probably won't mention in my teens, I just I just always loved it. I loved the doing a deal, the delivering the service. I always loved it, and I think how I ended up doing what I'm doing now was I always fancied building a consultancy. Not that I necessarily knew what one was in my 20s, and built the first one, sold it, built the second that was a bit better, and we were really kind of nailed on around we're going to build this and sell it. And I just fucking loved it, mate. I love entrepreneurs. I love business. And I'm very lucky that I love what I do.
That struck me about you when I first met you. I mean, the last sale was for decent, big numbers, wasn't it? Was it 13 million quid?
Yep.
A lot of people would go, I'm done now. I'm going to go and retire in the sunset. And whenever I speak to you, you are, we say it up north, game as a pebble. Like you are really, I mean, you are a northerner originally as well, aren't you?
Manchester.
Yeah. But you've got like fire in your belly, haven't you?
And I'm not sure that is ever going to change. So I remember asking my old man, and I said to him, when he was about my age now, I said, when is enough? And he said, I'll come back to you. And I've never frigging heard back. So
what did your old man do?
So when I was growing up, he was MD of Duracell batteries, and then MD of Gillette, and then he's bought and sold a load of companies in later life. So we're all entrepreneurs. I've got 2 brothers, both entrepreneurs, and we're just all kind of hustlers.
Wow.
Yeah, and my parents are both 70 this year and are both still working. So
that's incredible. They're big positions, them as well, aren't they? MD of Duracell, MD of Gillette.
Yeah, mum's a lawyer, but they're both still grafting, and they love it. I mean, they are apparently going into semi-retirement, but we'll see. I think that'll probably look like a full-time gig for a normal person, but we'll see. So for me, I've just always loved it, and I wondered whether I would slow down a bit after the last sale. And the lawyer even said to me, most people would be taking a big chunk of time off, laying on a beach. I said, listen, I'll get locked up if I have to be on that beach for longer than a couple of weeks. So I think some of us, we're just wired to be active and working. And if I'm totally honest, it makes me nervous, the thought of having to deal with this head. So I'm like, let's keep it occupied because it's safer all around.
I don't know about you, lad, but I sometimes think, when will it shut off? When will this stop? When will this constant
Yeah.
and it's sort of like, I've come to sort of accept it a little bit and go, you know what, that's maybe a superpower, but not everybody. Can you just explain for people who might be watching and listening what your head's like? You know, what's going on internally, the stuff, because all we see is this, you know, superwoman, very polished, you know, entrepreneur.
Well, I can tell you that is not what goes on in the head. I think it's there's urgency and action needed in the head. It's noisy. It always has been. I think the older I get, the more I understand the ADHD. At the diagnosis at 42, you know, the diagnosis when I was growing up was that I was just a bit of a naughty bastard, and that was the yeah, I mean that was a fair assessment as well. But I think it is I am heavily energized. I'm heavily action orientated, but I want to make a difference. You know, I want to be useful. I want to be of service, and I want the stuff that I'm doing to have impact. And I think I'm as driven now as I ever remember being, and I have to actively turn the head off and create that space. And you know, if I don't feel I'm doing it good enough myself, then I'll almost do a bit of an intervention. I mean, I'm off on a psychedelic retreat in about a week and a half, and it's no phone, no communication. You know, it is magic mushrooms, and it's a total switch off. And that's because I'm not convinced I've managed it as successfully as I would like so far this year.
I have had coming on the back of like we're talking off camera, like what life is busy at the moment,
Yep.
and I've had like, I get locked in my own head. Sort of like, I'll go to work, I can't. I've always struggled at 5 o'clock, going, okay, work's over. Dad Chris, partner Chris is back in,
Yeah.
and my missus will take it for a while. And this weekend, like, I got the dressing down, and it's like, I have all these good intentions of going, you know what, I'm going to turn my phone off at 5 o'clock. I'm not going to look at an email. I'm going to try and practice a real Sabbath on a Sunday. And, you know, and I fail miserably, you know what I mean? And I get to that point where, similar to what you're saying now,
Yep.
is that I need a break from this. You know, what are the warning signs with you that, like, maybe you need to?
I think when I start to see, I sleep like a bloody baby. When I start to see that not being the case, that's a bit of an early warning
Yeah.
sign for me. And it's not even that the hours of sleep get less; it's the recovery. I track everything on the bloody Whoop.
I've
It's that
noticed,
the
yeah, I've seen.
recovery is it starts to get poor even on 8 hours kip, and I'm like, hold up a sec. So it's some of those warning signs. My other half is always a good barometer on you know, providing frank feedback, which is useful. But I think the other bit for me is I can and do now feel some of those processes going on in my body and my mind, and I think I'm wiser to the fact I can't just ignore them and carry on. It's like, you know, your body and your mind is saying, I need a break here, and I can choose to plow on and do plenty of times. But at a certain point, you know, I want to respect the fact I'm not a bloody robot and go, here's a 5-dayer, phone is off. I mean, a combination of I'm exhilarated and fucking terrified about that prospect. I'm the sort of lunatic who'll be trying to find out where those phones are an hour after I've handed them over. But I think creating that space and saying I'm off, you know, I'm not contactable, and allowing myself that space and that time. That is what I built this business for, and that is exactly what I talk to founders about. And so there's an element of I must practice what I preach, because you know it's yeah, it'd be counterproductive otherwise.
I mean, the big sale that forgive me, Different is the name, the company
Yes.
with the
Yeah.
spelt with
Yeah.
one F. You know, big sale, 30 million. You mentioned that was sort of like what we were set out for. That's what you was gunning for from the start.
Yep.
How did that compare to the first sale then?
Financially, or approach?
In all aspects,
Yep.
obviously the big money was in the second sale.
Yeah.
So how was it different to the first sale going through?
So the
Could you
fir-
talk us through the first sale?
Yeah,
Sorry
yeah,
to-
of course, mate. So that first one, I was in my 20s, and the backdrop to that was I was project managing the first web-based social care system implementation in the UK, and I'm seeing this piece of software get implemented, and I'm thinking it's brilliant, but it's going to need professional services, a proper team to implement it and work with social workers to get it up and running. And so I approached the chap who'd built the software and I said, "Are you building a professional services outfit?" And he said, "No, the software is good enough on its own. That's what we want to sell." And so I said, "Great, well, if you don't mind, I'm going to rustle up wherever you sell into, I'm rocking up and we're going to provide the professional services." And I think he thought, she's early 20s, she's barking, so we don't need to worry about it. And fast forward a year, we'd written $1 million of business in our first year, and we kind of grew on from there. So we then moved into designing e-learning software, running accreditation on this software to get people trained. So we did a whole heap of different things. But from a personal perspective, my stepdaughter got sick with meningitis when I was probably in year 2 of that business. So we weren't in a position to go through and structure a proper sale. It was much more I was very much on the back foot because Charlotte, being my priority, was in hospital for 6 months in ICU, a further 6 months in hospital. And so we ended up selling that business for assets, for a lot of the learning software we built, for the accreditation program. And I went back to contracting because, frankly, I needed to earn a decent day rate. But also, I couldn't have my head in. Running a business is, as we've just described, do you know what I mean? It's crazy the whole time. And I just wanted to have the responsibility of being semi in and out, which is why I went back to contracting. So that first sale was a 6-figure sale, asset sale, really. And it was actually, I was 39 when I went into building the second company. So 15 years more experience. I would say substantially more mature, but I think you'll probably know I was lying a little bit with that, a little more mature. But it was really intentional. I'd been the other side of the fence. I'd been implementing and delivering these services for government and healthcare, and I hadn't been blown away with any of the agencies doing it. And I thought I can do this better. And that was the motivation to build different. And it was really intentional. Even remember back to doing the strategy in the first couple of months, and being clear that the roadmap was, we need a sell pack within an 18-month period and we need to be out to market. It was really nailed on.
And sort of, obviously, you are a very bold character. I can imagine you're in the thick of it, kicking, dragging people along, making sure that this happens. Okay. Was that business reliant on you in many ways? Different. What did you do? I think a better question to answer is: lots of people want to sell the business, but they're reliant on that founder. I sort of feel like my business is, I drive my business day in, day out, and I would almost think, well, when you're the face of that business, it's going to be harder to sell it. What was the story there?
So I think there's an element of that. I was playing a very active role around BD. So I'd started out owning the delivery and the BD. Then I pulled somebody in to own the delivery. And I was still at the point of selling their business. I'd probably written 85% of the number that we'd ever written. And so in that regard, it was reliant. But how we delivered, we had a very clear playbook, and that was very productized. And so a lot of the value that we got around the multiple for the business was attributed to that, but also attributed to the brand and the reputation. So we had a really solid brand around delivery, and we were synonymous with delivery from a healthcare perspective. And so there's no denying that I formed a big part of the deal going over, but I think we'd done a fair bit of work to extract me from some of the day to day and document, create playbooks, and have the business operate without me. But it's really hard because you're right. I was very much a driving force, and it's not dissimilar again this time. But I'm more wise to it this time, which is, I've just hired a sales guy who I'm hoping will become the MD, in a 12-month period. And so you can already see this time I'm like, no, I'm not making those same fucking mistakes again.
I mean, you say a mistake. I always interview people that like genuinely interest me, and I've been looking forward to this conversation because every time that I speak to somebody, perhaps in your space, or I listen to someone's podcast, they will say that the first thing that's going to stop anybody selling and actually getting that big payday is it being founder led. And I always think to myself, well, that can't be true. I mean, you're proof in the pudding that can't be true.
Well, yes and no, because I think what it means is the founder must go over as part of the deal. The way that you do not find yourself in an earn-out and working for a boss is that you level yourself up from an MD role to a chair role before the transaction happens. You kind of make yourself redundant, and I did not do that last time round. I went over. I had a 18-month earn-out, but I had a 3-year lockout in the market, and so they wanted me tied to them and then locked out of competing. And so the reality is, if I had been more into a chair role before I went over, I would have had more freedom to act. So I think, you learn, don't you, as you go.
So that was the big learning from the second sale.
There's quite a few learnings from the second one, actually. But I would absolutely say that, I'm a bastard to manage. So
Are you unemployable now?
I've been unemployable my whole life, I think, mate, proudly. But I'm very good in a team if I respect the capabilities around me. The problem I have is if there is an implied, this is your boss and you're going to be reporting in, and I don't rate their ability, we've got a challenge. And that was the issue last time.
And what was it like when you sort of got locked in for that 18-month period? How did you?
It felt a bit longer than 18 months. Yeah. I found it hard. I found it emotionally very difficult. I'm an operator. I like the freedom to act, the freedom to move. When my hands felt like they were tied, I found that frustrating. But also, what you see is what you get. I'm very honest. And so, I will call a spade, and I expect others to do that. And the basis upon which I sold the business, the strategy changed about half an hour after we went over, and that was very uncomfortable for me. It was all about, we'd done the deal on autonomy, on the brand stays, the brand, and all of that strategy changed. And that I found very difficult to handle.
How do you sort of guide a founder in making themselves redundant? As you've said, sort of moving them from founder led, but moving them up the chain to a chair people.
I think it's about building a business that runs without the founder. So the great test is, could the founder do one for 4 weeks and the business crack on every aspect of it? And would it continue? Would you still write business? Could you, there's an operational drama, could it be handled? It's about not, it's a hero bit, isn't there? And there's no denying that certainly last time round, I bloody loved that fact. I remember losing business and jumping on trains to the other end of the frigging country for a negotiation. And, that is still in me. I know that. But it can't be like that. I've got to build a sustainable business that will actually operate without me. So I encourage founders. I chatted to one this morning who I think will become a client. And I'd said to her, you have to extract yourself. I'm not saying today or tomorrow, but there has to be a plan. The management team, which she does have, actually assume their roles, because every day you're not leveraging the management team you're paying for, of course you're acting out of the role that you're supposed to be doing. And I got that challenge regularly from my old people director, who said, Rach, every time you are tooling around, running around the country, breathing life back into a deal, you're not the bloody CEO. And I found that difficult to hear. But she was absolutely right. So a lot of the time now I'm coaching founders to understand, what is it? Is it just comfortable in that role because it's what they've always done? Are they scared to step up and kind of level up and start to look at the business rather than be in it? And there's always a reason, normally a few, and then we need a plan to help them make that a reality.
I imagine it's like a lot of it would be fear for people, thinking, well, nobody can do it like I can do it. It's
I think there's a fair bit of that. And as founders, we do have to be able to do every role in our businesses, because here's the news, we have done at some point. And so to a lesser or greater extent, we probably can do them. But it is not a sustainable business. And at some point, we've got to get out of our own way. And, I remember with Different, I absolutely knew I would be a great founder CEO till the business was 200 people. But after that, I was the wrong one. It's steady state. I'm not particularly steady state. And my level of energy wouldn't be great for a business like that either. And so I knew my own limitations. But I remember talking to my management team, and they were absolutely aghast that I was saying I'm not the right one for the next level up. It's just, there's an element of emotional intelligence, but also awareness, and having some of those uncomfortable conversations, even with yourself.
You talk about three main pillars, and I did take a note of them. There's the sort of the growth stage, raising capital stage, and the eventual exit. What stage do you believe most founders get wrong, and why do they get them wrong?
That's a great question. I don't think all stages relate to all founders. And what I mean by that is, if you're a services business and you need to raise capital, then you've done something pretty wrong in the business. If you're a product company, chances are you are going to need to raise. I do, however, think that people inherently struggle at certain stages of growth. So there are kind of groups for me, the up to $1 million, and then the kind of 1 to 6, and then onwards from there. They feel like they are natural stages where there's a challenge and different thinking needs to happen. 1 to $1 million, you can run around, you can hustle, and you can make it happen. And a very energetic founder with a small team can make that happen. But I think going to the next stage, you need to have a think about, have you got product market fit, service market fit? Do you actually
What does that mean, product market fit?
So are you actually fulfilling an issue in the market with the service or product you're providing?
Okay.
And are you known for that? Or, the quid pro, the balance to that is, has the founder exhausted their own network and sold to their mates or whatever?
They've just been good salesmen.
But it's like, actually, can this run of its own accord? And are people, it's not necessarily about inbound or referral, but of course, all those are, they're points of evidence that you're getting it right. If I think about Grafta, it's only in the last 6 to 9 months we're getting referrals and inbound leads actively. And that's because we had to earn our stripes. We've now taken 55 companies through the methodology, but we have to hit those proof points. But I don't think for 1 minute we've hit product market fit. Not a cat and house chance. I think we're still hustling hard, and we've got work to do. But I think for me, revenue and growth is always a challenge, and people inherently think doing more of the same is going to improve the result. I think we're at a time, if I think about technology, I've never, ever known the market move as fast as this. It's fucking mind-blowing.
Frightening,
It's frightening, it's exhilarating, and it's disturbing.
I mean, the mind boggles when you look.
It's wild.
I mean, Claude, co-work, I don't know if you've had a play with that these last few months.
I feel
You're
like I'm having an affair with that fucking Claude, mate.
Unbelievable. I
Yeah.
mean, ChatGPT is dumped. I
agree. It's wild. And I think that's the exciting bit. And I was talking about this with the same lady this morning, and she said we've just spent $500,000 in the last 12 months trying to sort our sales out, and they had a plan and they had a methodology, and they weren't prepared to change it. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I mean, that does not sound like a useful approach in a market that's moving this fast. I said this 12 months ago, and I meant it. What we did then at the start of a quarter around marketing was different from the beginning to the end. And now that has shrunk. I think it's within a month. So I think what we're doing and what we're trying is, everything is faster, but also it's just constantly evolving. And those that are leveraging some of this for their benefit, and not about reducing headcount and thinking, the AI is going to run everything. I mean, I can't comprehend that being the case, especially not in these people businesses just yet. But I think those of us who are making use of it, we're absolutely flying. I built an app myself on Sunday, and I can't tell you how far from being a coder I am.
Yeah.
And the bloody thing works. Shock horror.
Yeah. Frightening, isn't it?
Yeah, terrifying.
I mean, moving on to the Grafta, obviously you're called exiteers, aren't you? The team at the Grafta have all been through, they've sold these businesses. Why do you believe that that's really important for your team as opposed to people who've got the theory and the perhaps the book smarts? Because that's a real USP for you guys, isn't it?
I would say so, yeah. I think for me, it's an extension of the personality, to be honest. We want to give these exiteers a methodology that's been battle tested, that we know works. So every exiteer must be trained on grow, raise, exit before they start supporting a client, and that's an intense undertaking in its own right. But we also want the freedom to act, and we want the knowledge and the constant learning with those exiteers. So what I mean by that is, give me an exiteer who has been in the trenches, who has felt the same problems I felt, had the same emotions, I've had or am having, because that ability to empathise, for me, is what prompted me to build the Grafta. So I wanted an exiteer when I sold the last business. I had a shit hot lawyer, but I wanted an exiteer, and I couldn't find that service. It didn't exist. I didn't want corporate finance because I didn't want somebody who was just gonna knock me up a sexy looking spreadsheet that didn't understand where I was coming from. And what if I was to allocate out time, I'd say that our exiteers spend probably 75% on the business and the technical, and 25% with the founder. And it is, what are you doing it for? What does, freedom look like for you? It's answering all of those questions. And most of us have never frigging asked ourselves, let alone been asked by someone else. We don't want to transform these businesses around founders without making damn sure that's what they're actually looking for.
Because, I mean, obviously, it's not my bag, but I talk to people sort of who've been through the process. I've got an old school friend whose world it is. And one of the things he said to me, he said, when you're selling a business, it is a job on top of a job.
Yep.
You know, it's incredibly difficult. You know, like you've touched on, emotional, you know, frightening, I think. What did you go through in that second sale? Tell us about some of the dark points, Rachel, the fears, the anxieties. That's
I think the bit for me, so there was plenty, but there were certain points where there was negotiating up until we did the deal, and there was disputes with a potential buyer, to the point where, you know, phone down on a call, and then there was repeated calls from him to me trying to get the deal over the line. So there's a few warnings that this was going to be a bit of a tricky scenario, truth be told. And I think emotionally, I remember thinking as I went through DD, Jesus, I've been running this business and I built the bloody thing and I understand it better because I'm looking at it through a different lens. But I also remember thinking, why are we only looking at this from a financial lens? And that's the bit I struggled with because it was a 60 FTE business.
what does FTE mean?
Sorry, so 60 permanent staff in the business when I sold
Okay.
it. And I wanted the people and wanted to be able to look at the lens of these as individuals. So I found that hard. I found it quite clinical as we went through the DD around the financials. And then as we did the deal and moved in, it was a massive shock because I was suddenly working as part of a listed business. We had to do our reporting every 5 days because they had to roll up all the reporting for the city. And of course, you know, it all feeds into share price and messages to the market. Most SMEs do not do their reporting on a monthly basis particularly well, let alone every 5 frigging days. I thought, Jesus, I've only just got through the reporting and they're back on my case. So it felt heavy, and suddenly it felt like I was in a reporting role rather than actually doing the job. So I think it was a roller coaster.
There must have been a good point, though, you know, when you've looked at your bank account and gone, fucking hell, that looks good.
There's no denying that there is. There's absolutely no denying, and that bit, I'm sure I still have a screensaver of that. Not on the laptop now. I mean, I've took a picture at the
Yeah.
time. So there's absolutely no denying because you have achieved the one thing everybody, or plenty of
And it's
us.
fuck you money, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's the I don't have to go and work. So there's financial freedom, massive fucking tick. I think the bit was the emotionally I was all over the shop, and I found it really hard. Like the team going into that business, the culture was very different to ours. And I just found it hard. It was yeah, it was difficult. It was very, very difficult.
Are there a lot of sharks in that industry? That is what my belief as an outsider, when you're sort of looking at private equity, you know, people buying companies. Obviously, you know what market I operate in,
Yep.
and I come across these types of people where there's deals gone wrong. Someone was going to buy it, the fucking last minute they pull it out, stick it into admin. You know,
I think there's I think in every walk of life you're gonna have absolute shysters. And you know, if I think about my 14 exiteers, one of them got ghosted on a buyer and they just fucking disappeared and they never did the deal. And we ended up finding her a different buyer. So I wouldn't say that example is one I hear every day of the week. I more regularly hear I've gone with a business broker and they are charging me a retainer. And then you look at the contract and there's a long tail on it. So whoever ultimately does the deal,
Yeah.
they've got to pay them some dough. And you're thinking, what is even going on here? And it's bits like that for me, where I wish we were more regulated because we could prevent some of that
I
happening.
suppose that's your opportunity, isn't it, to stand out, you know,
Definitely.
as someone who's been there. And
Yeah.
one of the considerations that come to mind when I was walking down there this morning is, how regular is this? You know, someone, if you are getting an offer to buy your business, how hard must it be for a founder to go, okay, I've been offered a life-changing amount of money here,
Yep.
but I've got to keep my shit together for operations there. And then that deal's not done till it's done, is it?
And I think that is a common problem because, you know, the reality is you're running 2 jobs while you're going through the process. And if it doesn't get done, you've been running 2 jobs and then you've got to revert back to one. You know, if I look at my numbers during that quarter while I was negotiating the sale of the business, the numbers dropped right off a cliff because
Did they not come in and kick you in the shins around that?
No, they didn't, because it was much more around the day. A day was the start that the clock was ticking. So it was the day they actually transferred the money is when the clock started ticking for the next numbers I had to hit. So that was really on me. That was a risk I took. But I think that's why a lot of people, and you know, we've been successful in this, is they will say, give us an exit here to run the process so I can continue running the business, because this may or may not happen. And, you know, there's a business we've been working with, 40 million, 35 million turnover, and they were all the way to, we're going to do the deal. And deal got pulled in the middle of the week. And, you know, I chatted to them and they've, you know, we've done a lot of the legwork to get this up and running, but they wanted to do that negotiation themselves. And there's pros and cons. I'm not saying if we were in there that would have had a different outcome, but I think there's an impact on the founder.
I'm going to say, how does that impact? So that deal was at the 90th minute, and it's falling out of bed. Just talk us through as much as you can.
Yeah,
anyway.
so we'd gone all the way through the valuation, the financials, normalising the last 3 years, looking at the next 3 to 5 coming out. We'd built the information memorandum. We've created a story for this potential buyer. So they weren't at heads of terms. They were around the right sort of number. But the distribution of cash and paper was a non-starter for this client. So they weren't 90% of the way through it. But in their heads, they'd committed 2 or 3 months to this point. But it's like that actually. That is the process. So it's it's a big undertaking. But
be certain that it's something you want. You touched on that earlier.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you want out of this?
Definitely. And I think a lot of people seem to build businesses and have never thought about it. Like 2 years ago, mention an exit, people would shit themselves. These days, we're getting slightly more relaxed about talking about it. But, you know, it's typically British, isn't it? Don't want to talk about money. It's odd.
I think we both fans of Daniel Priestley.
Massive fan.
You know, really good stuff.
I think I'm stalking him a bit, actually, truth be told.
I always see pop up on his LinkedIn post. Yeah. But I think his recent stuff is about the lifestyle playbook, you know, because not every business is going to go for an exit, is it? You know, there'll be people, so almost there's a bit of pressure for people to do this, that, and the other and make a business. I mean, what are your thoughts about people who just stay in their own lane, build a really profitable business, run it for...
I think fair play. If that's what you want to do, happy days. There's a lot of these businesses that are throwing off decent cash, you know, be it lifestyle or businesses that are scaled beyond a lifestyle number. And, you know, people are absolutely loving running them. I think the challenge comes if that situation changes. So a partner gets unwell, a kid, a parent, whatever it is, and for whatever reason, you can't be doing what you've always done. And then it's how do you extract the value from that investment? And you may sit there and think, I've been pulling off a shed load every year for 20 years, so I'm all right. But most, I think, are starting to think, if I'm ploughing that investment in, I'm looking for a liquidity event at some point, and that I think is partly education and it's partly the art of the possible.
I think that's it. It's having a reference point to go, you know what, this is possible
Yeah,
because they've done it and I
yeah,
can talk to her about
yeah.
this. Because that's what I've always liked about you're really down to earth. I don't even know how we got introduced originally,
Oh,
but
I don't, but kindred spirits.
yeah. But you're down to earth, and my preconception of your world was really ruthless,
Yep.
scary. Because I have met other people in that game. I think, fucking hell, they just seem a bit too sharp. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Whereas you have got that down to earthness. You know, we talk the same language.
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
we?
totally agree. And it's interesting you say that. We were at an event last week or the week before, and this lad come up to me in the break and he said, Rach, he's running a really decent business, but he said, I've been approached plenty of times, but he said, I can't even understand the emails coming into me. And he's a sharp lad, but he said, I can't even understand the emails and what they're talking about. But what I like is the fact that I feel I can have an honest conversation and it's going to be a down to earth. So I think there's an element of being authentic. And in this world, it was very corporate financy, suits, gilet. I mean, I don't want to stereotype. I mean, I clearly am. But, we're nothing like that. I mean, I'm going to be in a pair of trainers and
I've always, I always like your choice of
yeah,
trainers.
yeah,
Always
me
very colourful.
I'm
you know.
I'm a big trainer fan,
I
mate.
make trainer contact before I make eye contact.
Good. It's a good judgment on individuals. But I think for me, it's about being authentic. My acting ability is shite. So, why would I bother?
I mean, I've had the same in mind. Like my industry is full of guys in suits who spout the Insolvency Act to people to just scare people to death.
Yep.
It's very unhelpful. I got into this game many years ago, and I speak to people like like we're talking now. It's more about what does this actually mean? What does Section 216 of the Insolvency Act actually mean to you in real terms? And that's, I think that means me loads of work. But guess what? I think it loses me work sometimes. Sometimes people have got this preconception. They want a guy to talk to them like a naughty schoolboy
Yep.
with all this jargon. So I suppose it's like, they're not your tribe, them, are you? You.
Well, then they're not, and I think that's the bit. There's enough work to go around, and for me, I think the worst thing anyone could describe me as is a bit vanilla. It's like I am not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and I'm totally fine with that. We will bring a very unique way of delivering the services that we do, and I think being open and honest about who we are is super important. But I've been on client calls with you where people people are in a very tricky situation at that point, and they come off those calls thinking like they've got options, and B, you've given them confidence in their ability to even make a decision. So it's a powerful skill set. Being authentic is a very powerful skill set.
We haven't covered most of the questions that I wanted to talk about.
We'll have to do another one, mate.
Definitely. But there is one that I know that's really important to you,
Yep.
and I want to talk about this. 13% of UK founders are female. Why is that number still so low, and what needs to change?
It's funny, isn't it? So a 13% isn't funny, but it still surprises me that it is so low. We are very lucky as a business. Probably 40% of our clients are female. However, that will be because we are actively talking about how we're working with. I think that, I think women are equally, if not more so, capable of running these businesses. I think it probably goes all the way back to believing that they can at the outset. If I'd listened to the lady that was giving me career advice, Jesus H,
You should be a secretary up in
Well, no,
Cheshire still.
I actually think she said, she might have said teacher. I mean, I've got no fucking patience, so that would have been a disaster. Yeah, I mean, for me, it does go back to that right at the early stages, and it being a possibility, it being talked about as a realistic, you can go and do it. I was a CIO for 20 years, and the stats, there was 16% of CIOs in the UK were women, and that was back in 2017, 2018. So for me, in 2026, only 13% of women who are founders is just disheartening. But the reality is it has to be a clear call to action. All of this International Women's Day, give to gain. It's like, well, we've been fucking given for years. So for me, it's very simple. It's get out there and get on with it. And if any female founder is listening to this and wants to have a chat or a little motivational chat about, do I go and become a founder? Jesus, hook me up on LinkedIn. I'm absolutely here for it.
Well, that's what we're going to end on, right? If people want to find out more about Rachel Murphy and the Grafta, where can they go?
So I spend most of my life glued to LinkedIn, so they can definitely find me there. And the Grafta website is thegrafta.com.
Rachel, I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Me too.
I'm looking forward to round 2 already.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. Cheers. Thank you.